Hello and welcome back to Life on the Wrist. Hope you're doing well. Today we're going to be looking at a really beautiful Tudor Prince Oysterdate reference 74000N, manufactured in 1988. It goes without saying, Rolex watches are for many the pinnacle of owning a watch. The brand is a symbol of accomplishment for many. They likely saw advertisements or role models of them wearing these watches and aspiring to one day own the same watch as that individual. This is both understandable and admirable. Rolex watches are purpose-built and technologically important. They take a lot of time and energy and savings and personal accomplishment to attain, and that is why I think there is so much value in what Rolex has really done for the watch industry and watch collecting as a hobby. To get a Rolex, one has to overcome a lot of obstacles, and also one has to be patient in the process of attaining their dream watch. Impatience can sometimes creep into the process, and it's sometimes nice to find something to satisfy the watch collecting urge one might have in the meantime. This can be thought of as a placeholder for the bigger accomplishment to finally own that Rolex and be able to wear it on one's wrist. If you're considering some alternatives to Rolex models, the first sort of model that a lot of collectors or people who are aspiring to own a Rolex want is the Rolex Datejust. It's the perfect balance between a sporty and dressy watch. It has a waterproof sporty case with a very simple dial configuration, but can also be thought of as a formal, ready for any occasion watch. So when looking for alternatives, one would need to identify a watch with very similar general aesthetics. And I think there's not really much of a better place to start that search than by looking at the sister brand to Rolex of Tudor. Tudor first appeared on the dials of watches in 1932 after Rolex registered the name in 1926. These watches were a test for the market, and Montre Tudor SA was officially launched in 1946. In launching this company, Tudor began producing extremely beautiful watches that caught the attention of the market. Because Tudor is owned by Rolex, one will find huge similarities in the pieces they manufacture. So the big question as far as the topic that we're discussing today is, what is the Tudor equivalent to the Rolex Datejust? And that is the Tudor Prince Oysterdate. An example that you can see in front of you today. The Oysterdate comes from the Tudor Oyster Prince, which was originally launched in 1952 and became their automatic winding oyster-cased watches. Later, Tudor added a date complication to the watch at 3 o'clock, which you can see here, as well as the cyclop lens to magnify the date for the wearer. And voila, what you have is the Tudor Prince Oysterdate that has become, in my mind, the best alternative for the Rolex Datejust. One reference that has become extremely popular is the reference 74000N, which is a completely stainless steel model with a smooth steel bezel. The version that you see in front of you here today is exactly that reference and was manufactured in 1988. The watch has a 34mm case, stainless steel case that's in overall pretty good condition. There are signs of wear, given the watch is almost over 40 years old. The watch has a steel smooth bezel, which you can see here on this watch. If it will focus, you'll see the steel smooth bezel, which I think is quite an attractive feature of this reference. Aesthetically, the steel smooth bezel on a steel watch basically gives one a blank canvas, and it's understated and can be worn in basically almost all environments. What you can see is the lugs are fairly sharp. They do have signs of polishing, but one of the attractive features that you'll see here is that the lug of this watch has a hole, and that allows one to switch out straps and bracelets very seamlessly on these watches. I think this is easily one of the best features of this watch and takes personalization of day-to-day wearing of the reference 74000N to a completely different level. And I mean, right now you can see it's on this sort of dark brown strap, but very easily could be switched out for something maybe brighter if it went with one's outfit. The watch has a white sunburst dial that has aged nicely over time. One can see small, unintrusive dots on the dial as well, as you can kind of see close to where the kind of where my finger is here on the left of where rotor is written, and then also sort of between where the hands are attached to the dial, and then between the Prince Oysterdate line on the dial. To me, the dial has aged has aged nicely over time. It's slightly darker than what you would imagine white sunburst to be, but aged really nicely over time, and looks really nice with the sort of freckles. It gives the watch its own sort of personality. The Tudor has the typical applied hour markers and applied Tudor logo that are in great condition, and the crown is also signed with the Rolex cornet, as you saw probably when I was showing you the lugs, but you can see it again here. There you go. The watch runs on the caliber 2824 automatic winding movement. The movement was launched in 1972 and was heavily used in Tudor watches throughout its history. In 1982, the caliber was upgraded to the 2824-2, which is what one can find in this watch. And the movement is basically 11.5 lines in diameter. It has 38 hours of power reserve and beats at 28,800 vibrations per hour. With 38 hours of power reserve, one would probably think, oh, that's not all that much compared to some other vintage watches that have, 40 or 50 hours of power reserve. But one does have to remember that this watch does have an automatic winding rotor in it. So as long as you are wearing it every, let's say 12 hours, taking it off in the evening, putting it back on. Oops, sorry about the focus. Taking it off in the evening, putting it back on in the morning, the movements of your wrists are going to continue to charge this watch, and you'll have no issues with having enough power reserve to get through the day. Now, what a person aspiring to a Rolex Datejust would typically gravitate towards really depends on the preferences of the person. So many people have sort of moved away from purchasing two-tone Datejust models or two-tone Tudor Prince Oysterdate models, and they've gone more towards steel-on-steel versions. And this probably happened for a number of reasons. For one, they are less costly, but because you don't have obviously the gold metal that would command a premium. But they also feel a little bit more sporty compared to the two-tone models. In my mind, if you having something a little bit more rugged in stainless steel, it lends itself to more of a sporty environment. You can think about Rolex Submariners, which are most of the time are completely steel, or the original ones were steel on steel. So there is that sort of side of this whole coin that is considered. Given the general shift away from formality in society, these can be extremely well equipped for most people's day-to-day lives, and I think this is a great example of that. This also makes the 74000N the perfect alternative with this trend towards less formality, maybe something a little bit more sporty, and a blank canvas that one can experiment with. On the wrist, it's completely understated. In my mind, it flies below the radar of most people. It also isn't a watch that one feels they need to be too delicate with, and one can treat like a true sports watch, although it would not look out of place on a nice black strap in a formal environment. Even on this brown strap, I think it lends itself really nicely. You can see the watch on my wrist here. 34 millimeters, it fits really well. I have smaller wrists, but for me, fits really nicely on the wrist. Not super thick either, so it's going to sit very comfortably on the wrist and wear just how you would imagine a vintage print, a Tudor Prince Oysterdate would wear. Sometimes the wait for the perfect watch can be an arduous journey. One will likely consume so much content about watches and have to patiently plug away at their goals to finally be successful in attaining their goal. And filling this with a placeholder is never a bad decision. It can be a good reminder to remain focused on the goals that one has set, and being a Tudor 74000N, one can enjoy the history of the brand and the beauty of a nice watch while their goal is slowly but surely comes closer and allows them to purchase the dream watch that they've had on their mind for a long time. I hope you enjoyed taking a look at this really cool stainless steel with a smooth bezel Tudor Prince Oysterdate reference 74000N, manufactured in 1988. I said it throughout the video, and as you can tell, we've covered these references, or this specific reference, on the channel a few times now. To me, this is like the ultimate everyday watch. If I was to recommend a watch to someone that they wanted just to wear every single day, that is vintage, wear every single day, that will get the job done, will allow you to have some personalization aspects to enjoy. I think this really is the ultimate vintage watch if you're looking for something very, very simple. The smooth bezel is super understated. Being steel on steel, it means you don't have to be too delicate with it, and these are manufactured so much and run on a fairly robust caliber that it's not difficult to service. It's not hard to find parts as a watchmaker for these pieces. So I think overall there's so much that one can get from these specific watches, and when you compare it to some of the alternatives that you would be looking at for similar aesthetics of these pieces, it's not as costly, and I think that's a really great feature of this watch, that one can enjoy a fairly nice example for a lot of the times that's a price that, if you compare it to maybe a similar Rolex Datejust from the same era, would be very different. So a really nice example, nice little aging on the dial as well, which is quite attractive and something that I always love. You know this, I've spoken about it at length on the channel. Dial aging and oxidized gold cases, like some of the best features on watches in my mind. Anyway, as always, we will have an article on lifefromthewrist.com if you want to read more about this piece. There will be the first link in the description of this video if you want to check it out. You can also see some more pictures and videos on that article, but if you want to see some other pictures and videos of this watch, you can check out our social medias. There will always be posts about this specific watch on those channels. So be sure to check those out. There will be links in the description to all of that. Let me know in the comment section below what you think about this watch. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and if you wouldn't mind liking this video, it really does help me out. If you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and share this video with a friend who might be interested in watches. And with that said, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and until next time.